Today, we're doing a really focused deep dive. We're looking at global trade data, but zeroing right in on a huge structural issue facing countries like Sierra Leone. And maybe more importantly, we're examining a remarkably surgical plan to fix it. We're talking about making, or, well, not making the most basic household stuff.
Exactly. So our mission today is first to look at the cold, hard facts of these trade imbalances. We're focusing on plastics and cleaning products in Sierra Leone, and then zooming out a bit to the whole continent, basically from 2013 to 2023. Then we pivot straight into dissecting this very detailed training project proposal. It's designed specifically to tackle these deficits, and we need to frame it, within the bigger picture, things like the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, and even look back at some powerful historical examples of industrial planning.
Right. And before we get into the numbers that really tell the story, there's one key metric we absolutely have to define. It's called the import-export coverage ratio. Sounds technical, but it's actually pretty simple. You just take the value of a country's exports, divide it by the value of its imports, and you get a percentage. If that number is under 100%, you've got a trade deficit in that area. Simple as that. It means you're spending more money buying stuff from abroad than you're earning selling your own stuff. It's like our main yardstick for trade health today. Okay, so let's dive straight into that trade reality, starting with Sierra Leone's overall picture, say, for 2023.
Yeah, so looking at the big picture, the whole economy, the country imported about $2 billion worth of goods, but they only exported around $1.5 billion. So that leaves a total trade gap of roughly $520 million. The overall coverage ratio, about 74%.
74%. That's already a pretty big gap, lots of money flowing out. But you're saying that number actually hides an even weaker spot when you dig into manufactured basics.
That's exactly right. This is where the numbers just stop being abstract data and really become, well, a diagnosis of a crippling kind of dependency. Let's look specifically at plastics, HS code 39 for those tracking. In 2023, Sierra Leone imported nearly $107 million worth of plastic goods.
Okay, $107 million in. And exports.
Barely $2 million out.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is. It's a staggering disparity. And when you calculate that import-export coverage ratio just for plastics, the number is less than 2%. It's actually 1.95%.
1.95%. So wait, help me understand what that means practically. For every dollar they earn selling plastic, they spend.
What? They spend $50 buying plastic from other countries, 50 times more. Just think about that. It's like a massive hole in the bucket, just constantly draining vital foreign currency needed for other things.
50 times, okay. And it's a similar picture for other basics, right? Like cleaning products.
Same story, different verse. Cleaning products, that's HS34. Think dish soap, bleach, surface cleaners, all that stuff.
Yeah.
In 2023, imports were around $7.4 million. Exports, only $1.7 million.
So the coverage ratio there is?
About 23%. Still way, way below balanced. Again, this isn't about failing to make smartphones or complex machinery. This is about, the basic plumbing of modern daily life, not being able to produce it yourself.
And it's important to put this in context, right? Is Sierra Leone an outlier, or is this a wider issue?
Well, Sierra Leone's situation is particularly acute, especially in plastics. But the underlying challenge, it's definitely continental. If you look at the aggregated data for Africa as a whole in 2023, the plastics coverage ratio was only about 23.5%. Better than 2%, sure, but still a major deficit. And for cleaning products continent-wide, it was closer to 48.5%. Almost half, but still importing more than exporting. So there's a clear reliance across the continent on outside supply for these fundamental goods.
That's fascinating, because this isn't how it works globally for these sectors, is it?
No, not at all. And that's a really crucial point. World trade data for 2023 shows that globally, the plastics sector actually ran a tiny surplus. The coverage ratio was just over 100%. And cleaning products globally were almost perfectly balanced, around 98.5%. So this really confirms that the deficits we're seeing in Sierra Leone and Africa more broadly aren't some weird market quirk. It's very specifically a local and regional manufacturing shortfall. It's a production problem, plain and simple, not a lack of demand. Okay, so you've painted a picture of this really deep hole in essential goods, stuff people need every single day, no matter what the economy is doing. So what's the plan? What's the ambitious, maybe even immediate fix? And that brings us, I guess, to this manufacturing school idea. Right. This is where the source material gets really interesting. It describes this proposed project as an open technical knowledge transfer education project. The immediate goal is super practical. Teach people how to actually make and sell plastic goods and cleaning products. But the bigger vision is about cultivating what they call industrial entrepreneurs, people with high-level skills who can actually start and run their own manufacturing businesses focused on these specific needs.
Okay, industrial entrepreneurs. But here's the part that really jumped out at me, the financing model. You're saying the plan is for the school to pay for itself? How?
Through the sale of the products that the students themselves manufacture during their training.
Wait, really? So no big grants or government budgets upfront. They plan to fund the whole thing, trainers, materials, operations, just by selling student-made bleach and jerrycans, basically.
That's the core idea. It sounds incredibly ambitious, I know.
Yeah, hugely ambitious. Maybe even risky. I mean, how do they guarantee they could actually sell enough stuff consistently enough to keep the lights on? What's the mechanism there?
That's a fair question. And the source material tackles it through, well, extreme practicality and very targeted production. First, like we discussed, they're laser-focused on products with massive, existing, and inelastic domestic demand, those basic staples everyone needs. They're not trying to create a market for something new. Second, the training itself is structured to move really quickly from theory to actual high-output practice. You get the theory from experienced practitioners, then there's a one-week practical production test. If you pass that, you essentially start functioning as a productive worker within the school setting, generating real sellable inventory almost immediately.
Ah, okay. So the production isn't just a lab exercise. It's the actual financial engine from day one, more or less. And the curriculum, you mentioned it's specific.
Incredibly specific. For cleaning products, they're not just teaching how to make soap. The list includes 11 distinct product types. Things like surface cleaner, bleach, dish detergent, liquid hand soap, window cleaner, fabric softener, lime remover, carpet shampoo, degreaser, grout cleaner, even cologne.
Wow, that's comprehensive. And for plastics?
Same level of detail. They cover the whole chain. Plastic recycling, using raw materials, the specialized injection molding needed for things like bottle caps, and crucially, the blow molding process for those essential larger containers. They specifically mention making 5-liter, 10-liter, 20-liter, and 30-liter jerry cans or bidons. The training is absolutely targeted at producing the exact high-volume items that are currently driving that huge import deficit.
Got it. And the long game isn't just skilled workers, it's about creating business owners, right?
Exactly. The plan is laid out in 3-month phases. By the fourth quarter, the goal shifts. They aim to be signing actual contract manufacturing agreements, presumably using the school's established capacity initially. And, very importantly, they plan to set up a specific, dedicated financing system, the source calls it industrial finance, to help the successful graduates actually launch their own independent workshops or small factories. Now, choosing these specific products, cleaning supplies and plastics, it wasn't random at all. This really gets to the core philosophy of industrialization behind this whole idea. Why start here?
Yeah, that's a good question. It feels very deliberate.
It is. The source analysis is clear. Cleaning products are defined as consumer staples. These are things people need daily, relatively unaffected by economic downturns. And crucially, as you might guess, there's generally lower brand loyalty compared to, say, imported electronics. That makes it easier for a local producer to potentially substitute the imported options.
Okay, so they're stable, everyday needs. Makes sense. But there's more to it, right? You mentioned something about an engine.
Yes, this is the intellectual heart of it, really. The cleaning products industry is identified as an economic synergy engine. The argument is that by growing this one core sector, you automatically create direct, immediate demand for several other key industries. Growing cleaning products actually provides the incentive, the pull, for these other sectors to develop alongside it.
An economic synergy engine. Okay, I like that phrase. So how does that work mechanically? You grow the cleaning product base, and it ripples outwards. What specific sectors get pulled along?
The analysis points to 4 specific areas that get an immediate boost. First, the chemicals industry needs surfactants, maybe greener chemical alternatives, etc. Second, obviously, the plastics industry itself gets a huge pull for all the packaging, bottles, caps, containers. Third, the recycling industry. As you make more plastic packaging, the demand and economic logic for collecting and recycling that plastic domestically grows stronger.
Okay, chemicals, plastics, recycling. That makes sense. You said 4.
The fourth one is maybe the most critical for building long-term industrial muscle: the machinery, mold, and automation industry. Think about it. To make that specific 5-liter jerrycan consistently, or a custom bottle cap design, you need high-precision molds. That requires CNC machining capabilities. And eventually, for efficiency, you need automated filling and packaging lines. Building the cleaning sector creates the local demand for companies that can make and service that specialized machinery and tooling.
Right, so this leads to a kind of planned sequence for development.
Exactly. It dictates what the source calls the next project philosophy. described using a Turkish term, damlama teşvik sistemi, which translates roughly to a trickle incentive system. You start with the core sector, cleaning products, because it has that immediate broad demand. That success acts as the first trickle or demand signal.
Okay, let's pause on that trickle incentive system. If you only have limited money to invest, how does this focus it? Does it mean you literally don't fund, say, the CNC machining part until the cleaning companies are actually knocking on the door asking for molds?
That's precisely the idea. It avoids scattering investment, hopefully. Instead of building, say, a huge, expensive CNC facility and just hoping someone will find a use for it, you put the initial, limited capital into the sector with the highest existing demand and maybe the lowest barrier to entry in this case, cleaning products. The success of that sector then creates guaranteed, real customers for the next level up, like plastics and recycling. And their success, in turn, creates the guaranteed demand for the more complex, higher-level industries like CNC machining and maybe even basic iron processing down the line. Okay. It's a very targeted, phased way to use scarce resources for maximum industrial impact.
And this idea of planned, state-guided industrialization targeting specific sectors, it's not just a theory on paper, is it? There are historical examples.
Absolutely. The source material points to a powerful and instructive historical precedent. Turkey's first 5-year industrial plan, which ran from 1934 to 1938.
Ah, okay. What was the focus there?
It was a classic example of aiming for import substitution and, really, economic sovereignty. The plan deliberately prioritized investments in industries that met certain criteria. They had to use domestic raw materials as much as possible. They often required significant capital or technology that private industry couldn't muster alone at the time. And crucially, the goal was to build enough capacity to meet Turkey's own internal consumption needs, replacing imports. Key sectors were things like textiles, mining, paper cellulose, ceramics, and chemicals.
And did it work? Big plans like that often face hurdles.
Oh, absolutely. There were delays and cost overruns, as you'd expect. But the overall results, they were pretty transformational, according to the sources. During that broader development period, let's say from the founding of the Republic in 1923 up to 1938, Turkey's per capita GNP apparently almost doubled. It went from around $48 to nearly $90. It stands as a historical example, showing that a focused, planned industrial strategy integrated with national policy can be incredibly effective for development.
Which brings us back nicely to the project's core idea. Not just creating jobs, but creating industrial entrepreneurs.
Exactly. The training is seen as essential because the goal isn't just random entrepreneurship, someone opening another small shop. It's about fostering industrial entrepreneurship, specifically aligned with national industrial policies. Sanayi politikaları is the term used, aimed squarely at reducing that current account deficit we talked about. And that requires more than just a good idea. It needs that practical training. It needs readily available technical project plans, like an archive they can draw from. And it needs that dedicated funding mechanism. Industrial finance, focused solely on manufacturing ventures.
Okay, so this deep focus on building local supply capacity makes perfect sense on its own. But it also plugs into this massive market opportunity that's opening up. Right. Let's talk about Section 4. Leveraging the wider African market.
Yes, absolutely. We have to talk about the African Continental Free Trade Area, FCFTA. This is potentially game-changing. The goal is to create the world's largest free trade zone by membership. 55 countries, 1.4 billion people, a combined GDP of something like $3.4 trillion. This is the massive potential marketplace for the goods these new Sierra Leonean entrepreneurs could produce.
The scale is just huge, and the specific goals of FCFTA really align with this project, don't they?
Perfectly. FCFTA aims to phase out tariffs on around 90% of goods traded within the continent. And a key stated goal is to boost intra-African exports by potentially over 80%, with a particular emphasis on growing the manufacturing sector's share of that trade.
And the numbers for just these two sectors, plastics and cleaning products, across that whole FCFTA zone.
The market data is eye-watering, frankly.
Yeah.
In 2023, the total import market size for all FCFTA countries, just for plastics and cleaning products combined, was over $30 billion.
$30 billion. Annually.
Annually. That breaks down to about $26.6 billion for plastics and $3.5 billion for cleaning products. That's $30 billion flowing out of the continent each year just to buy these basic manufactured goods. It highlights the immense internal market waiting to be captured by local producers.
And zooming back in a bit, Sierra Leone is also part of a regional bloc, ECOWAS, right?
Yes, the Economic Community of West African States. ECOWAS also has goals for economic integration and self-sufficiency, working to eliminate trade barriers among its members. And even just within that West African region, the import market for these same two product categories was already $4.13 billion in 2023. 3.69 deals for plastics, about $440 for cleaning products.
So the takeaway here is pretty clear.
It really is. This manufacturing school project, if successful, creates these industrial entrepreneurs who, first and foremost, can start meeting the desperate domestic need in Sierra Leone, tackling those single-digit coverage ratios. But once they achieve viability at home, they are perfectly positioned. They can use regional agreements like ECOWAS and ultimately the continent-wide FCFTA to sell into this enormous growing regional market. It addresses both immediate needs and long-term economic diversification.
It's really quite a clever cascading strategy. You start small and focused, build capability, meet local needs, then scale up to regional and continental competition.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've journeyed from a plastics coverage ratio under 2%, basically a 50-to-1 import dependency, through this unique student finance training model, the whole synergy engine concept, the historical echoes of planned industrialization. The main thread, the key takeaway, it seems, is this very deliberate, very planned connection. Solving local manufacturing gaps in absolute basics is directly linked to achieving these bigger goals of regional economic integration and strength.
Absolutely. When you see the level of detail in the plan, focusing on industrial entrepreneurs, funding the training through the actual products made, linking every single step back to national import substitution goals, you're looking at a serious attempt at building genuine economic independence, not just talking about it.
You know, this whole discussion really makes me think about that powerful principle mentioned in the source material, articulated way back at the Izmir Congress in 1923. National sovereignty must be solidified with economic sovereignty. So, given the kind of staggering trade deficits we saw today, even in just basic stuff like surface cleaner and plastic jerry cans, here's the provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Is this kind of intense practical focus on developing local skilled manufacturing capacity, like we see in the Sierra Leone project proposal, is that the absolute non-negotiable necessity today for any country serious about achieving real economic sovereignty in the modern world?
Something to definitely think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into industrial strategy and the stories hidden in trade data. We look forward to our next analysis.